My name is Alec Latulippe.
Jeshua Soucy.
Caudill.
Denno.
It's Melissa Denno. I am the storyboard artist and the cinematographer of Creative Truth Film.
I am the director and editor for Creative Truth Film. I am the lead writer and part-time actress for Creative Truth Films.
I'm a director and cinematographer from Maine.
I'm a writer, director, and actor based out of Sabattis, Maine.
I'm Corey Schneider. You're joining us at our short film show on NBTV. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us.
Now, I'd like to start us off with how much harder it is to catch an audience's eye with a short film than it is with a feature film. How do you challenge this problem and get your work to be seen? Alec, would you be able to start us off?
Yes. It's a great question because one of the things that I find fascinating is the difference between a movie and a TV show. I like both, and TV shows are especially an interest because you have so much time to tell a story. Like you can tell a character arc over 6 seasons and really build that connection. In a film, you don't. In a short film, it's like super limited. You know, like most of my short films are 7 minutes, and you just have to. For me, it's just keeping in mind like what's important, like what matters to the story, and what actually moves the story forward, and just trying to maximize your time because, especially as independent filmmakers, you're really limited. You got to do the best that you can do and make the most out of it. So.
I think it's hard too because like you have like hopefully you know your audience a bit, and you know where a movie you have like 10 or 20 minutes, which is the length of a short film to introduce your characters and get the story rolling. With a short film, it's like no, you have like a minute of your 7 minutes, or even last 30 seconds of your 7 minutes to like introduce what your story is and you know what's going on. So hopefully you know. I don't know, you almost have to take an idea and condense it down even more concentrated than a movie or, you know, something to grasp attention at the beginning. And then, I don't know, it has the same role to it, but it's much more condensed than a movie is.
Yeah, you got to condense the story beats, definitely, because you got, like, you know, you got the inciting incident, you have your middle act, the fun and games, all that kind of stuff, and you cannot fit all of that, even though you want to, into a short film. So you have to try to find the best place for the character, because, you know, character matters first, like what Jeshua was saying. And then you go, okay, if I have a 7-minute film, how can I fit the character and get people to care about the character? Because if the audience doesn't care about a character, they're not going to care about the story. So you first have to make sure that you commit enough time to do that, and then make sure you have enough stuff going on in the short film to keep the audience entertained. But you first have to get that character to click in with the audience, and that's very difficult to do in 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's very limited.
Yeah.
Music is crucial, though. We love to make silent films because it helps us to not focus so much on what the character is saying, but just showing the audience how they should feel about the character. And music is a very big part of that too. We love to do music. I'm usually the one who picks the music for our movies, so that has a lot to do with the film too.
Yeah, it draws people in a little bit quicker than just having silence, because you know people when they go to a movie, they have paid money to go to a film. It's on YouTube and everything. They don't have that commitment, so you have to get them drawn in by something, and you don't have time to get them to like the characters. Then it can be the music, or it can be a really cool shot in the beginning. It can be a really cool quote. You know, like, how could you do this to me? Like that, just like, ooh, what did they do? You know, it kind of brings the audience in and goes, I could commit another 5 minutes. I could commit another 7 minutes. You know, so I think that helps.
Yeah, and I think music goes hand in hand with the story that you're trying to tell. I've noticed, and you know this is just my opinion, but I've noticed in like movies and TV shows, typically the music composition is not as great with a scene that's not as great. But those scenes that really pack a punch because the storytelling is good, the characters are good, the writing is good, the music, you feel it. Arrow is a great example of a show that has a great composer, and some of the tracks are just like, what is this? And some of the tracks are like, yeah, I'm an archer now. So I try to work with composers when I can. It's expensive, obviously, especially for independent folks, but music is huge.
Yes.
Yeah. Everything is huge, but music is definitely one of those things that helps convey emotion. And so.
Absolutely.
And no matter what like language you speak, everyone can make them feel like something because of music. Everyone can feel that.
Do you guys find that having music right at the beginning helps grab the attention of an audience more, you think?
Most of the time, or a sound, like one of our films that we just did, Distractions, I started the film off with an alarm clock going off right on the title. Instead of it being a title and then sound, I put the sound with the title, not music, just a sound, and that kind of piques the interest of, in my opinion, it does. Not everybody. Some people go, oh, that's an annoying sound, I want to shut that off. But, I think that it can help.
It's almost like starting the film right in the middle of something going on.
Yeah,
kind
exactly.
of like, oh, wait, what's going on here?
And like they say, start off in the middle of something and end early.
Right. Come late. Right. You come early to the party and leave.
Yes.
Wait, no. Wait, turn around. Yes.
Leave early.
Yes.
There you
go. You know what I mean. Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, the film industry is changing though, and it's shifting from these box office movies to exclusively on streaming services. So what does that mean for filmmakers like you guys, who are independent short filmmakers? And how does this help you get out there more and get your work to be seen?
I would say, I mean, where we are, we're like, they're very short, short films. Ideally, hopefully, at some point, you as a short filmmaker, because, say yes, there's still huge, blockbuster movies, but they're maybe looking for, smaller productions or, smaller ideas that could turn out to make money. Hopefully as a short filmmaker, keep making films and they're good and they get noticed by somebody, and, maybe you have an idea that's like a 13-minute long short film or a 20-minute long short film. Somebody notices it and likes the idea, and then you go on, you flesh out the idea and make it a movie, basically.
Yeah, and then the short film would serve as like a concept piece.
Yeah, so hopefully with the industry changing, maybe there's more production companies or, I don't know, big organizations looking for like, hey, like at, film festivals or smaller, I don't know.
We've actually found there's a couple people on Facebook groups and everything who have contacted us, and they're like, oh, we actually have a way to get your stuff on, like, the Roku TV and all that kind of thing. They had some of the smart TVs, and people have 45 minutes on a television show or whatever. Short films can be across the spectrum, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, and streaming, you're not grounded on just the 45-minute mark or the 30-minute mark. So you can go ahead and do that. We have we put like Guided, I believe, on Roku.
Maybe a few of them.
A couple, yeah. And that's getting more real now because of like what you said with the whole streaming services has been really big lately. More people are going, ooh, we can take advantage of that, and all you short film people go on and give all your stuff, and that's been cool seeing that.
I think there's a bit of a gap between, you've got like high-end movies, you've got like your art movies, and then you've got like YouTube videos. And in there, in the middle is like, okay, well, they're YouTube video length, say, but they're hot, have a little bit more intention and energy put into them. So hopefully somewhere's in there, maybe somebody will build a platform or something for that kind of market. Like she's saying, either like maybe short films just become a bigger thing on streaming,
that'd be cool.
platforms or something.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, it used to be where you were really dependent on knowing people. And obviously that can still be an important thing, connections and all that, but now it's more so just being able to put yourself out there online and finding different ways to get yourself out there, like coming to local TV stations to do talks and interviews and such. But I mean, the power is in the internet, and if you use it in the right way, you can get yourself to the right people in the right places. And I think it's just, I'm really interested in making what I want to make, and hopefully that catches the eye of someone rather than kind of, following the traditional path and kissing butt. So
It also helps with networking too, like what we were talking about, just the internet and how everything's been going, and there's more people making short films and things like that. You can connect with more people, and it's not like you have to go to a red carpet to make connections. You can talk to people right on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and that's really cool too. That's helpful.
And usually the more people you get involved, like passionately into your project, even just to help, just as volunteers, they're excited about your project even more because they were part of it.
Yes.
We have someone from our church who helped recently with one of our films, Distractions, actually. It's our newest one. And she cannot stop talking about basically that scene where I was behind the chair and you need to pretend that electricity went out. So I pulled the plug at the exact moment, and she's like, that's me behind the chair. Like, you can't see me, but I'm there. But it just makes her so excited. And we're like, okay, cool. Are you sharing it with your friends, and everything, like, get it out. So that definitely helps with spreading it, spreading it.
It's very cool including the community and giving people opportunity to try something they never thought they would, want to do. So, yeah. It's really cool.
Does that come with a problem, though? If you're constantly having the community be, say, your actors, your production staff, is there any difficulties that come with that?
Yeah, it can. Working with amateurs, can have its problems, because like, all right, can you just make it be like, third DPI, do this, and, use all these technical terms, and the person just kind of looks at you and kind of blinks. Okay, get me the big white thing and bring it, so that kind of makes it a little bit difficult sometimes, but it's also cool to help people learn some new skills. And if you have time, some people don't have time, but if you have time, it's cool to kind of hold their hand and bring them along with your adventure, because I'm still learning. We're not, we've been doing this for 5-6 years professionally, and you don't stop learning. There's always new things. Watching Steven Spielberg movies, you go, oh, I could do that better.
Yeah. Like she's saying, none of us are like, too good for help, although help. And hopefully the people that are, involved or part of your production are like people that are passionate about it. So say, you're making a short film, but it's like, yes, the actor is somebody who's acting for free or, just there, but they do like acting and they do still like making films. So, it's like inexperienced help, but, hopefully everybody on the production is like passionate about it. So even if it's low budget or, you're just getting help from people, it still can be made, high quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have control on your set, it's a huge bonus, like what Jeshua said, to be able to trust your crew. Because if you're just paying somebody, oh, this guy's here to hold the boom mic for money, he may not have as much passion and as care about it as just going, I'm doing this for $15 an hour. I don't think I need to hold it this high. It's nice to know everyone around you, especially as a director, to be able to trust my crew, to just go, okay, you do the sound, you hold the boom pole, you do this, you do that, and then I can go and do my job. Being able to trust your crew is hugely beneficial.
It's a team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's go back for a second and talk about the process. So you have an idea and you're ready to start. What is the first thing that you guys do?
Brainstorm. Or that should be the first thing we do. Sometimes we get too excited and we're like, no, I just have an idea. Let's just do this. And I'm the lead writer for Creative Truth Films, so I do most of the writing anyway. But they do writing too. But if I have a really cool idea, I'm like, guys, I have this idea. Here's the basic idea, and I'm just gonna start writing. But really, the really good idea to do it to start is brainstorm. Just okay, here's your base idea. Now, what could happen? Or, and just ask the question, what if this happened? What if this happened? And get all of the ideas out on the table. And then you're already just kind of going down multiple roads and just figuring out if they're going to lead anywhere, right from the get-go. So you're not wasting time drafting 10 drafts of this script, which I may or may not have done before, wasting time, basically. So for me, brainstorming should be the first thing you do.
Because you get all of your good ideas and your bad ideas out out of your head, and you have a critic side and you have a creative side, and you get the creative side out and you barf all over the page and you go, okay, now I'm going to take this out, I'm going to take this out, I'm going to take this out, and now this looks better, and now we can refine it and work on that, and we get a really good foundation, and then you work on that, and you have to make sure you stay focused to whatever theme you're doing. We like a lot of, in our short films, we tend to like a lot of themes. We have to, encourage someone with something or teach a lesson. We make a lot of, biblical films. We want to talk about pessimism and how that can hurt people and all that kind of stuff. And we have to go, okay, this is the message we want to tell. How do we not bog that down? And also, how do we make it not super cheesy? And that's the first couple things that we have to do before even talking about the pre-production process versus the brainstorming, the theme, and then she goes and hides for 4 months and starts writing.
For a few months, to start writing
Yeah.
and get some drafts. Yeah. What about you guys?
I'll let you go. I want to hear what you have
Yeah,
to
do
say.
you agree? Or please
Yeah, I
challenge
was going to
us.
say, I mean, it depends on the production. I think if it's it depends on how advanced of a production it is. There's simple videos, that I basically like thought of the idea and then just had friends and we were just like, let's do it, and filmed it right then and there. Ideally, like with anything that's a little better, if I think of the idea, the first thing I do, kind of like they're saying, brainstorm. I just think on it for days, trying to bring in different ideas and weave it together in my head, maybe jot ideas down on a piece of paper till I have it worked out. I feel like it's different every time. I don't know what you guys think, but it's like sometimes you think of the idea almost fully right off the bat, and then you just work on it a little bit after that, or it depends on the length, or all sorts of different factors. But yeah, it starts with an idea and then hopefully goes to writing, but depending on the size of it, it can go quickly to just stays in my head and I film it and stuff, or I write it out and plan more if it's bigger.
Almost like a discovery filmer, you got a discovery writer, outliner, you got a discovery filmer. It's just like run and gun.
Well, there's
the
times
camera
with
out there and go.
there's times with a mini documentary or something where it's I'm kind of filming some stuff and talking to the person that I'm doing the documentary with to kind of okay, well, how is this going to flow? How is this going to fit in? Trying to almost discover what they want to show of themselves in the documentary, So it's I don't know, there's so many different ways to go about it, but I'd say normally it starts with an idea for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I typically tend to just think about it. A lot of the ideas, as I'm sure it goes with a lot of us, if not all of us, is the idea kind of just pops in your head. It's not really something that you're like, well, today I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write up an idea. It just, something happens, and you just get an idea and you just start playing with it. And for me, I think a big thing for me is mixing the acting side of me and the directing side of me. For years, I used to just really be interested in making the things, but then I found, well, I didn't find, I kind of realized, wait a minute, why am I recognizing or remembering word for word these epic movie trailers and then reciting them in my car while listening to them? Why am I doing all these weird acting things? And I started to realize that was I love writing and directing, but acting was my main passion. And those are kind of things I just happen to be lucky to enjoy and use it as a vehicle to get there. But in the brainstorming process, I find myself doing stuff like that trailer. I'll listen to tracks on audiojungle.net or YouTube, or I'll listen to these just random trailer tracks or cinematic tracks, and I just kind of start to visualize. I take that base idea that I came up with, and I'm listening to the cinematic track that fits kind of the tone that I just visualize, and I just picture it. And I just picture it in different ways. And then eventually at some point, if it's not an idea that turns into, well, this is 10 years from now, if it's something that I can do at this point with my skill and my budget, I start to write it out. But I have to let it sit in my head at first, and if I sit down with a piece of paper and try to, I'm sure I'd come up with something, but just letting it marinate in my head like a piece of chicken is the best, for me, the best way to go about it. It just eventually pieces itself together. I'm like, oh, that's what I'm gonna do. So.
I was gonna say, for me too, even when the idea is in my head, but also when I go to write, I listen to music the whole time. Always I'm like, what's an orchestral or a soundtrack that fits the idea, kind of, and I just play that.
And music certainly does help. I get a lot of my inspiration, funny enough, which is gonna sound bad, but I go to church, right, and I'm at church and I'm listening to the pastor, and I go, oh, that would be a really good story. And then I have no idea what the pastor's saying, and I'm start, marinating, like you said, about what could that look like, and how could we film that, and that'd be a really good, symbolism. That'd be a really good symbol and a good analogy. I think there was one time where the pastor was talking about how we need to not just talk about loving people, but show it. Give a homeless person a sandwich and love on them. Don't just go over and give them a tract and say, hey, just love Jesus, bye. You know what I'm saying? So those kind of things happen, and it's like, oh, I could make a film about that and show people what that could look like. And Bible has a ton of the best stories and a ton of the best examples and the best themes, and I want to take those and, without it being cheesy, tell a story and get people to think and go, you can be kinder, you can be more loving, you can be more self-controlled, don't waste your time, all that kind of stuff. And that inspires me to keep writing. And honestly, that happens with you too. You tend to take verses from the Bible and go, okay, I could make a story from this.
Yeah,
And
it comes from a lot of different places. One, the Bible, or a message, or just life, honestly, just fooling around with my sisters or my family, and then it's just like, oh, this could be a skit, because they're crazy, and so I get some good ideas,
crazy.
Or stuff like that. But it's interesting too how, even though you get an idea, it can transform into a completely different film than you originally thought. Like our short film Guided, it's a fantasy. It was not supposed to be a fantasy. It was supposed to be like a 5-minute short film to kind of, and what we're gonna do, like different colors.
It's supposed to be at a school, and it's supposed to show like how a person who's depressed can make everybody else depressed, affect people, and how to be more positive. And we called the person up and we're like, hey, how could we get a school, and how long could we get the school? And they're like, oh, you could get it probably for like an hour. You cannot film a short film in an hour,
Right.
So we went back and went, we can't do that, so now what? We have woods. We can do that.
This is Maine.
Right, this is Maine. Let me use the woods.
Right, so if, what would have been a 5-minute or 3-minute, really short film and just not fantasy, turned into a, how long? 20-minute?
20-minute
fantasy short film. She wrote it, not me.
Does that, guys, happen with you at all?
say,
Do you ever have like this isn't gonna work, get a U-turn and figure out something else?
Even if it's not an obstacle that changes it, it's just like you have to, as you're making the film, you come up with like a very clear vision of like what you imagine, like, I don't know, I do imagine specific scenes and exactly how they'll look and play out. It's like when it's filmed, you're like, well, it's not what I was imagining, but you almost have to imagine something specific so you have a goal to move towards, but then like let it go in the moment, find out what's going to happen.
It's hard.
Kind of.
It's hard sometimes to just like swallow and go, oh, that's not exactly what I envisioned.
It's depressing sometimes.
Sometimes it's better. Right?
Yeah, that's why the editing is so huge, because it's like that's the final, like, what's it going to be, and you have so much manipulation and change that can happen there for sure.
Definitely.
They say that editing and directing go hand in hand together. The only difference is that editing has the scenes already there. Do you guys also believe that?
I think so. I direct and I edit. And
yeah, she's the one that asks.
I don't like editing per se, but I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it's definitely
tedious.
Yeah, it's just, okay, I was the director, I take my director hat off-ish, and then I go into my editing chair and go, okay, this is what it will look like this way, and cut and cut and cut, and then you have to cut more, and then you have to cut more, and then it really, really hurts, and then you cut a little bit more. And yeah, it's definitely, it's helpful, in my opinion, to be a director and edit, because you don't have to talk to another person in the room. But on the other hand, it can be a little detrimental because you get in your head too much. And you have to go, okay, I'm done with my baby. I'm going to go give it to somebody, and they're going to go slaughter it, and I'm going to take it back, and then I can work on it. I don't know about you guys, but it's that headspace can get a little bit overwhelming at times.
Yeah, I think that editing is definitely really tedious. Yeah. I found myself multiple times, I sit down, this short film that we just shot together, I started editing it, and I'm like, oh, dear heaven of mercy. And I can splice it and dice it, and like I'm not an editor, but I can put it together and blend audio and do that and make it good without having to hire someone, but I hate it. I hate it.
It's so monotonous, right? It's just like the audio is just over and over and over.
Yeah, and over. I have a friend who's in this film, Will, actually. Like when I was showing him a clip, you use I think it's the J character in Premiere Pro to like backwards. He's like, oh, I hate that set. It's like, yeah, imagine listening to that 24/7. But
it's awful.
Yeah, editing is tedious, but you write your film 3 times: when you write it, when you shoot it, and when you edit it. And you can severely change the context in any one of those things. Literally from what you have on set, you can change the context in post-production.
Right.
Change the order of it, change the feel of it. But it's nice as someone who directs and edits, not that I would want myself to edit for the rest of my life, but it's nice to be able to know how it's going to piece together. Because Jeshua and I just shot one together, and he was keeping me on top of my shot list so that we had what we would cut to.
Right.
And you can kind of keep that in mind too. Like, all right, we have the shot here, and we'll cut from here to here. And obviously, you don't know all the cuts, but it just gives you a general idea of kind of how things are going to look.
Yeah, because absolutely often when you get into the cut room and go, oh my goodness, I don't have coverage of that. How did I not have coverage of that? Or like the sound was going wonky on that coverage, and you have to go, okay, I guess we don't get to use that shot this time.
Yeah.
You have to. It's like a puzzle. It's really like a puzzle. It's just like you got little pieces that you know work, and then you go, that's not fitting. And then you got to go make a new puzzle, and then you got to fit that puzzle with that puzzle, and it's exciting to see the final product.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think all of us would hire an editor if we could and just like let them at least do the, because there's some monotonous work to it where it's just like, yeah, you just got to put the scenes together so that when you watch it, it works. But, if you're good at editing, ideally you find like a kind of a pace to it, like where the cuts and like why you're cutting to, say even just a basic conversation where you've got, camera facing at each person. Why do you cut, to one view versus the other? So there's definitely like a flow to it. It'd be great to just have somebody to cut it together, and then you could come in as the director and go, oh, let's switch that around there, or whatever. But obviously, we are all editing our films at the same time.
Yeah, organizing all the shots, and okay, this is A, and then this is the shot, and then this and that, and then you have to. I mean, I'll do the cutting, but it's the sound and the monotony of just over and over. Okay, this is a J cut, and this is an L cut, and this needs to be a little wider shot. Now I have to splice the sound again.
But even the cutting, that has to hurt. I mean, doesn't it hurt? Like, almost always you have to trim something from the beginning. Yeah. Like, you have this great, brilliant idea of how it's going to start. Like, it'll open like this. Well, that wastes too much time, so cut it. Okay, fine. We'll cut it.
It can definitely hurt. Do you guys think that if you were to be able to hire an editor, would it be hard to give up the control?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm a control freak.
Yes.
I want an editor, but I don't want an editor.
You will always feel like you are going to be able to do it better. But at some point, you have to trust someone else because you can't do it all. And if you don't learn to trust other people, like bring in really good cinematographers,
Pause to look.
you'll just never scale.
Yeah.
And you'll never grow. The goal, I'm sure for all of us one day, is to be able to do what we love doing. I don't love editing. I don't love telling my cinematographer that we don't have a dedicated audio person and that we can't afford it, so he has to manage audio himself. I don't like doing all those small things, and like I said, the goal is to be able to do what we love, but we don't have the budget for it yet. But once you are able to delegate those things, it's maybe a little tedious that you have to go back and forth a couple times with an editor and give them notes. But think about all that extra time that eventually we will have to dedicate towards the thing that we love. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I wish I didn't have to go back 3 times with notes. But at the same time, I now have 20, 30 hours open of my time to be working on my next project. As long as provided, obviously, you can afford it.
Definitely.
Do you find that, how do you when you get all of your footage and you put it into Premiere, do you find that you're creating do you use Premiere?
DaVinci.
Okay. So do you create different sequences for you have all the footage and then you go through, you pick everything that works and then you piece together the film and then there's a following sequence for each cut of the film?
Yes, just like brainstorming. I use my my critic side first, and I go through all of the footage I just did and I mark them. I'm an organizer, so I tend to, I don't know about you, but I go into DaVinci and I go into the rename and I rename each one to this and this and I give descriptions and I watch them all and I go, okay, I tag that as red if it's a bad shot, or if I tag it as yellow and the lighting was but it could still work, and I do all that kind of stuff. And then once I'm done all that, I can take that hat off and I can go, okay, these are my blue shots. My blue shots are my good shots, and I can just take them and splice them in, and it makes the first cut insanely faster. I can do the first cut in probably 30 minutes because I do the first, monotonous, tedious stuff first. And it makes it a little bit more enjoyable, I guess, to do the first cut, as well as I think it's a little more efficient for me, anyway. I'm an organized person. I don't like to.
I try to be careful not to write off any footage from the start, because you never know. I don't know. There's been times where I've been like, oh, that clip is trash, and then I've gone back looking for something later and been like, oh crap, that works, right there. So it's it's weird. I normally try to cut the sequence together, and then I find oh, that spot's a little weak. You know what I mean? Or maybe that shot doesn't work. And then
so you just take the footage and put it right
replace
in
it and
there.
recycle the. Slowly work on the a sequence till it makes sense and looks good. There's so many different ways to go about it, and it's crazy with different with the editing it. You could edit it a million different ways.
Yeah, I think that for me, one of the lessons I learned a few years ago, I took a 6-week work study at Maine Media, and one of the biggest things I learned is really just organizing your project, because the bigger it gets and the more you don't organize, the more you're scrolling down 1,500 files looking for one specific one. So what I do is, for this last film that we shot, we had 3 hours, 2 hours and 56 minutes of footage. I created a proxy because it was 4K, so I was editing in 720 so that my system wouldn't slow down.
Right.
But I dragged all the footage in one sequence, just about 3 hours, and I watched through it all. Now, I was there, so for some parts I skimmed through it because I knew what it was. But I go through all of the footage and I cut. I use the C tool and I literally cut, this is usable, and I drag it up. So I don't delete the other footage. To his point, I always have it there, and I do find sometimes where I'm cutting together, because I have 2 different sequences. Once I pick everything that's good and usable, I have a separate sequence. So there's all footage and then my selects, that's what you call them. And then anytime I go in my selects, I'm like, wait, didn't I have a shot that was like this? And then I go in, I'm like, okay, I didn't select it, but it's here so I can use it.
Yes.
Right, you didn't delete it because
Definitely.
you thought you didn't need it.
So once you go through your selects, you have all of your shots, and you pretty much just drag and drop, and you can have some cut somewhere, and you have your rough cut, and then you start to blend it together. But by doing it, the all footage sequence, then you have a select sequence, you always have your original footage, so you're not writing it off. Because like he said, I found myself going back to the original sequence and having to scroll through some of that footage to find it. And then for each cut, the rough cut, I create a new sequence once I'm done with the rough cut. So anything I change after that is an entire new sequence, and that's one of the other most valuable things I learned at the work study, is because if you mess something up or you need to go back to the way it was before, you can't if you don't create a new sequence. If your only sequence is this one sequence and you go from rough cut to final, what if you need to revert back to something old?
Right.
It's so that's the way I do it.
Do you have a hard time? Do you have a hard time separating? For me, I have a color style of just yellow, red, and blue. So blue is a good scene, and then yellow isn't okay, but the lighting was off, or the acting was not as good. Do you, when you're putting in the first cut, do you care more about the lighting and the look of it? If you had to choose between, oh, this is really good acting, but the lighting was so bad, and then the next cut was the acting was but the lighting was perfect.
So when I go through my selects process, I take anything that is usable. So there could be a couple takes, and majority of both takes are usable. I could have a preferred one, and I typically try to pick that when I'm piecing it together. But at the start, I take anything that I see that could be used, anything that's not out of focus, anything that doesn't have audio peaking, anything that whatever is usable. And then when I start piecing it together, I know, okay, and I drag it up. So I have a different track. So you have track 1 and track 1 for audio and picture, or video and picture, or video and audio, and I drag it up so I know that the bottom layer is what I don't want to use, and then the top layer is. So when I start piecing together the rough cut, I can see, okay, in this scene I've selected 2 takes from this scene, and I pick which one is the best, and I piece it together.
Okay, that makes sense. What about you, Joshua?
Yeah, I think I probably do a similar thing to Alec, where I'll basically use anything that's usable to create my rough cut, and then as I'm refining it, then I'm like, oh, this one, this is a better take of that, and I don't know if I like if it's lighting or acting more, it really depends on what's worked for the story. Because it's like, oh, you know, in one scene a character might have like moved their arm down.
Right.
Another, you know, it's like continuity is is probably like takes the cake, and then
yeah.
after that it's like probably acting or facial expression for
Okay.
sure. It really depends. It really depends on what you're trying to do,
It does.
like where you're cutting it.
There's
you know.
not
Yeah.
one black and white rule.
And sometimes you do have to sacrifice for something that doesn't work, like continuity. I mean, I had there was one shot in this film that we shot a few weeks ago. We did 2 takes, and something's happening in the background while 2 characters are kind of dancing. And the second shot was better in terms of performance and pacing, but the actress was looking at not the camera, but she was looking at another character that just happened to be right behind the camera. It was like, so here's the camera and here's the actor. So she did not make eye contact with the camera, but just with the placing where people were, she was just looking right off camera. And I didn't want to put it in there because I didn't want it to distract people and think she looked at camera. She didn't, but it was a little too close.
Right.
Yeah. Too close to comfort.
But the other shot, it works. It's not the best option, but it works. And sometimes you have to make that sacrifice. Otherwise, you're going to pull someone out.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
That's true.
I'm going to take this back for a second. Before we end this, I just want to know, do you have any advice for any future filmmakers out there?
Who wants to start?
Don't give up. Your work may start very bad and you see so many problems with it when you're older, but if you keep working at it, you will get better.
We started with an iPhone.
We started with
an iPhone, and that's, you know, and we're a lot bigger now, and it's like what she said, don't give up and focus on character and focus on your story. Do not care about this shot will look so cool. That is not important. What's important is the story, the character, the theme, and then you go, this shot will make the story look that much better, or this shot will tell a great story. You can have a couple cool shots in there. I mean, like we all do that, but
Priorities.
Prioritize, and then you'll start making films a lot faster than you would just going, I'm just gonna put a bunch of cool shots together and do nothing. You know,
I would probably say also, don't be afraid to find a group of people to show the first few drafts to. For all the processes. Find proofreaders for your script. Find anyone who's not biased. Because you look at it for days and you're just like, this is horrible. It doesn't belong here, it belongs in the trash. But then you give it to someone else and just like, this should be a movie. You know, and it just, you need, a writer especially, needs to give it away. Needs to give their baby to someone else to look unbiased at it. And through the other processes too, just with the editing, with the different cuts. You gotta trust some people just to take a look at it, find a group of people you trust to look at it, and filmmakers and non-filmmakers, because some people look at it and we're just like, oh, continuity was horrible there, you know, but other people are just like, that story is horrible. Like, I don't like this. I don't like this story at all. So it's really important to find just a bunch of different people to give your idea to.
Feedback,
and just,
basically, make sure you
feedback.
get
a clean eye. You know,
That'd be my advice.
Yeah.
take off the rose glasses, give it to somebody else. Solder your baby.
I would say, excuse me, I have a couple pieces of advice, stuff that I'd probably give to my younger self, as I'm sure we'd all give the advice to our younger self. The first one would be that you're always going to have a problem with something you make. It doesn't matter whether you start with an iPhone or now you're using, 4K cameras and you have a crew and all these different great things that make your production value better. You're always going to look at the final product and be, I would have done this differently, I would have done this differently. That will never end. Steven Spielberg probably says the same thing. You're just always continuing to grow, and your baseline just keeps increasing. You will never make that perfect film. And you can't think like that, and if you just don't. The second piece of advice I would say, and something that is meaningful to me, is keeping what you do true to yourself. Because I used to be this is going to look cool, I'm going to make it, and that's fine. Like, there are movies out there that are just, a quick hour and a half that you watch and action, but there is so much more to be said when there is a meaning to a story.
100%.
And if you base that in some experience, in some version of your reality, whether it's at a very base level, the meaning level just jumps up dramatically. And if you just keep true to that and you only make things that you believe in, that's how you will scale.
Yeah. My advice to future filmmakers, I would say, wow, I like what Alex said. But I would say just take action, like film something today, or like take a step towards your filmmaking goal today, because you're never gonna regret like a film that you made, that you put effort into. If you're like willing to take the step to like get the people together, or group up with your friends, or pull out your camera and film something and follow through with the whole process to the point where you have a finished product, you're never gonna regret that. I heard somebody like pose the question, have you ever regretted making a film? And I was realizing like I don't think anybody could say yes to that. Like, oh yeah, there was this film that I shouldn't have made. You might regret like the films that you've halfway done or not quite completed, or the films that you thought about starting but never started. But you're never gonna regret making a film, and sitting there, you're not gonna get a film done. So make it happen.
So essentially, the advice is just do it, right?
Just do it.
Do it and do it good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Tune back in 2 weeks when we'll have the director of Pipe join us. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.